Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming on this gorgeous morning. My name's John Hybush. I have the honor of being the Executive Director of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. And we're here this morning to welcome an extremely special guest at the Reagan Library, Secretary Alex Acosta, President Trump's Secretary of Labor, the 27th Secretary of Labor of the United States, has an extraordinary career. Evidence of that is his nomination, his succession to the office just a few months ago has placed him in a position where he runs one of the largest, most important of all the regulatory agencies in the United States. I had the opportunity to be a Chief of Staff to the Secretary of Labor when I worked for President Bush 41, and I know of the extraordinary challenges that the Secretary faces. He's handling them incredibly well. So he's here this morning, and I'll let him give you the reasons why. But his honor, his memories, his time as in high school and in college, and as a young man, influenced by our 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, and we're just delighted and honored to have him here this morning and to welcome him to the Reagan Library. So with that, welcome here, Secretary Acosta.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning. It is truly wonderful to be here to relive my memories of President Ronald Reagan. I want to thank the staff of the Reagan Library for their hospitality this morning, and particularly for their devotion to preserving the light of President Reagan's legacy. My visit today carries profound meaning for me. I was only a child during the 1980 election, yet I remember a sense of unease that I was feeling at that time. As the hostage crisis dragged on, I begged my parents to let me stay up to watch Nightline. Back then, it wasn't even called Nightline. It was called The Iran Crisis, America Held Hostage. And every night, they would start by counting up the days in captivity. Day 171, day 172, day 173. I wondered why we couldn't bring home our Americans. I remember that my family owned a car back then that only got 5 miles to the gallon. And my parents struggled to afford the gas to keep it running. I wondered why, despite their hard work, we couldn't get ahead. My parents were born in Cuba. They fled communism, and as the Soviets marched across borders and incited revolution around the world, their concern was palpable. That sense of unease faded when Ronald Reagan was elected. His optimism made me feel good about America. Across our nation, Americans felt a renewed sense of hope. It was morning in America. President Reagan made us realize that we were not destined for decline. President Reagan united our nation by insisting that the best days are ahead of us. By turning his principles of limited government and personal responsibility into sound policy, he boosted our economy to unseen heights. I believe we're at another turning point in history. Just as in the 1980s, there is a renewed confidence today in the American economy. We have a president who has promised to make America great and to put Americans first. When Ronald Reagan kicked off his 1980 campaign, he said, quote, "This country needs a new administration with a renewed dedication to the dream of America, an administration that will dream new life and make America great again." Today, President Trump is renewing this same dedication to the American dream, to our American dream. The reasons we're here today is to recognize an aspect of Ronald Reagan's career and political beliefs that is often forgotten, his leadership of and support for organized labor. 2017 marks 70 years since Reagan was elected to his first term as president. Not as president of the United States, but rather as president of the Screen Actors Guild. As president of the Guild, Reagan had noticeable accomplishments. He led the union's first 3 strikes. He negotiated the first contract that included residual payments. He created health and pension benefits for union members. His lifelong respect for union values would help pull together a broad coalition that would elect him president. As president of this nation, he continued to recognize the contributions of unions to a free society. His support for solidarity in Poland prompted a flourishing of freedom that eventually led to the collapse of communism. To honor his legacy, the Department of Labor will induct President Reagan into the Labor Hall of Honor later this year. This induction will memorialize his leadership of the Screen Actors Guild, his love for American workers, and his support for workers struggling under the yoke of communism throughout the world. I want to thank the Sergeants Benevolent Association for submitting the President's name for consideration. And in conclusion, I want to thank this library for preserving the ideals of the Reagan Revolution. Libraries often are symbolized by lanterns of light. And as walking through today, there were so many memories of my childhood, my times in high school and college that came back to me. Preserving the ideals of the Reagan Revolution matter. And this library, this lantern of light, this beacon of light reminds this nation of the principles of limited government and personal responsibility that President Reagan stood for. It's a shining beacon on this hill overlooking this magnificent valley. I can think of no imagery that would more greatly resound in the hearts of President Reagan and his First Lady than that of this light on this magnificent hill, telling Americans who visit of the importance of limited government and personal responsibility. Thank you for allowing me to visit today. Thank you.